Hey folks, Pat here from DNS, and this Madison area fishing report is current as of August 2nd. Well, a lot of folks coming through the shop today. I'm going to try to knock this out. We do have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's see if we can get her done here. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources sends out press releases, and they sent one out this week that, it caught my eye. They were talking about state parks. I'm a big fan of state parks. I've actually taken my family to all the state parks in Wisconsin, and they're all great in their own way. Of course, some have, more incredible features than others, but each one seems to have at least one thing that's cool about it. Anyway, they mentioned in their press release or whatever that they had the Find a Park tool on their website. So here's all the state parks and forests that the DNR runs, and it's great. You can learn about each park. You click on it. But let's say you wanted to visit a state park and you wanted one that had fishing opportunities. So you can go up here on this bar on the left over here and click fishing, and that'll eliminate all the parks that don't have any fishing. Let's say you had somebody with you with special needs or accessibility issues. You can click on accessible fishing pier, and that'll eliminate all the parks that don't have accessible fishing. So it's kind of a cool tool I thought I'd point out. And again, big fan of the state parks here, and I'd encourage anybody to get out there and explore them because they are awesome. Noah, in his video last week, super great video. He always does a great job explaining the Monona rig and fishing for panfish on Lake Monona. Of course, the willy worm he talks about in there. Um, and this video, like a lot of things on the internet do, has gone a bit viral. 22,000 views in the last week, which is super fantastic. I do get a lot of people, though, with it being on the internet, a lot of folks from all over can see the video. So I get no less than 6 calls a day from folks from all over the country looking to buy willy worms. And I don't know how many people from out of state watch this report. Probably not many, but I do not ship out of state. I don't even ship, actually. So kind of taking the New Glarus Brewing model of things, only in Wisconsin here, or only in Madison, I guess, in this case. So swing by the shop, pick up some willy worms, 1/32 ounce jig heads, and go catch yourself some bluegills because the bite's been great up there lately. I guess a little bit of shop news here quick. We got door posters. The Badger Childhood Cancer Network is hosting their Fishing for Families Bass Classic tomorrow, August 3rd, on Lake Wisconsin. That's running out of Remy's Thirsty Moose. Great event. We're happy to support that event through the shop. We donated a Rod and Reel combo gift card. And yeah, it's going to be hot tomorrow. Maybe you don't want to go fishing. Maybe you just want to go talk about fishing. So you can go up to this event. They got bands and food and beverages and raffles and all kinds of stuff. And of course, all the money goes to benefit Badger Childhood Cancer Network. Great organization doing great stuff out there. Troy Farms, right up the road, is having a family fun and wellness event tomorrow, just up the road here from the shop. And the Yahar Fishing Club is having their garage sale event August 2nd and 3rd. August 2nd, of course, being today. I think it's only open to members today, but that's at 506 Raymond Road. And then tomorrow it's open to the public for sure. So if you want to get some good deals on some gently used fishing equipment and benefit a good cause at the same time, go check that out. A little bit of more shop news. Leeches are done. I should have like a big red X over this or something, but no more leeches. They're done for the season. They won't be back until spring. It's frogging time. We've been burning through our topwater frogs, but it is a great time to get out, so I figured I'd mention that. Swing by and pick some up. We got a great selection of traditional ones, but also some interesting colors, which also apparently work pretty well. And with this heat, we're going to have this weekend. It's important to keep your bait cool. Stop by and get yourself a DNS bait cooler. It comes with a frozen freezer pack and is a great way to keep your worms cold and your other bait cold. It's crawlers, elite crawlers out in weather like this, they're dead in 10 minutes. So yeah, you got to be sure to take care of them there. Otherwise, as far as other report items go, lake levels remain high. According to the website here, the Dane County website, they're still above the summer max. They still don't have any slow no wake orders in effect other than down here still on Weechawak, formerly known as Squaw Bay. So yeah, that's good news. And it doesn't look like, with the forecast, it doesn't look like a lot of rain in the forecast. So hopefully we're not in a threat of that, and that threat has passed. So good news on that front, I guess. The Lake Mendota buoy, you can see here, is not running yet. I did find out this week that the limnology folks call the buoy out there David, as in David Bowie, which is kind of fun. But David Bowie is not touring, I guess, right now, so, or recording any information for us. But I do hear from local anglers that the surface temp is around 80 degrees on Mendota, so for what that's worth. The Water quality around town looks great according to the water conditions at the beaches monitored by Dane County Public Health. The only beach that's closed here is Tenney Park, and that one's closed for construction. So all the beaches are open, which means the water must be in pretty decent shape, and I think that'll be reflected here in the report as well. I did check the DNR's tournament page. Only one tournament, 40-boat tournament on Lake Mendota that is pending, so I don't even know if it's scheduled. So either way, 40-boat tournament's not a lot to worry about on a big lake like Mendota. But as far as the report goes, generally with it being dry this last week, lake levels have come down a little bit and algae blooms haven't been too bad despite the heat. The heat does seem to have slowed the fishing down a little bit, but people are still doing well out there. For the most part, look for gills congregating on outside weed edges in 10 to 15 feet of water and in weed pockets around the chain. I've heard, for the most part, you can find fish anywhere from that 10 to all the way up to 20 feet of water. Same thing on Lake Monona, but I'm also hearing about gills suspended out there 10 to 15 feet down out over the deep water basin. So that'll be like that all summer, and we'll talk about it a little bit more on in the report. A small jig, though, for the gills anywhere on the chain, tipped with a red worm or spike or waxy, is a great way to catch those fish anywhere on the chain. Crappies have been more scarce lately, but are being found out in that same 10 to 15 feet of water on weed edges and on structure. But I've heard about some suspended at those same depths out over deeper water as well. A crappie minnow or a minnow-shaped plastic on a small jig head is a pretty safe bet for those fish. Other than a few here and there, I still haven't heard much in the way of perch action. Not sure what's going on there, but redworms have been working well. Fish tight to any dense weed line. The denser the better weed line you can find, and if you can fish close to the weed lines early in the morning, has been the best action that I've heard about anyway. Bass have been in a good mood around the chain. Largemouth are up shallow for the most part, and lots of things work well for those fish this time of year. But with the weeds coming up, weedless rig, plastics, and swim jigs are good options. And topwater action's been great this time of year. That's why I mentioned the frogs at the intro there. Some smallmouth can still be found shallow, but for the most part, those fish are being found on rocky shoreline breaks in 10 to 20 feet of water these days. Catfish are dispersed back out into Lake Mendota, so you never know where you might run into one. Walleye are being found on mid-lake humps in good numbers now, but they're still getting them on shoreline breaks in 15 to 20 feet of water, sometimes going out as deep as 25 on a sunny day, where a more subtle presentation like half a nightcrawler or a large fathead on a drop shot is a good idea, or a small jig. That's not to say folks don't get plenty of fish trolling crankbaits and crawler harnesses. And of course, when the walleye move up shallow at night to feed jerk and swim baits, are both great options for those fish. When the water temps are close to that 80-degree mark, make sure you're checking temps if you're fishing for muskie. When the water gets that warm, the muskie anglers tend to give those fish a break because muskies can actually die from stress after a fight. There are lots of pike out there, plentiful around the chain, and we'll grab just about anything this time of year. Rivers and streams continue to run high-ish, but for the most part are down quite a bit, and we'll talk about those later in the report. As far as more detail goes, up here on the north side, up on Cherokee, still a lot of weeds up there. It's going to be a weedy mess until ice up, really. But if you topwater action can still be good up there if you get some bass or maybe a small pike or something. If you got a small watercraft or a small boat or something, you can put in here at the school road launch, get out in the channel there, fish the weed edges and more clear water out there for casting, and you'll find some happy fish. I'm pretty confident of that. 113 Bridge area, still, they still catch catfish down there and some dandies. The catfish out there are all huge on Mendota, but not in the numbers they were this spring. So they've dispersed back out into the main lake. This is a great area to find a nice mixed bag of fish: walleye, pike, bass, panfish, anything you can find in there. So that's a great spot, and you never really know what you'll find. Otherwise, out on Lake Mendota, the cooler temps this week have had the algae blooms toned back a bit, at least for now. Bluegills are being found on outside weed edges, and I'll put this on pause for just a second. And we're back. So yeah, bluegills are being found out on outside weed edges, but I've also been hearing about them being picked up on outside or on mid-lake humps. So places like Dunn's Bar, Brearley Bars, Second Point, Commodore, which seems kind of early to me. That's usually a fall thing, but I've been getting the reports, so just going to pass that along. A few crappies are being picked up on weed edges as well, and while I don't hear about a lot of them, the size structure for those fish has been great. Like I mentioned in the intro, just a few perch reports coming in here and there. I hear about a lot of fish on the west end, but mostly small. You got to find a weed edge, typically early in the morning. Redworms have been working well for those fish, but I don't know what's going on. The perch numbers just aren't there like we thought they would be. And one of the running theories I hear a lot about is that the weeds just aren't thick enough so they're still hiding in the weeds and they're not getting pushed out to the weed edges. But we'll keep you posted on that and see how the perch do. Otherwise, bass have been in a good mood. Smallmouth, like I said, can be shallow, but are mostly being found on rocky breaks in 10 to 15 feet of water. Largemouth has been good up shallow, where those fish will generally remain all summer. But the topwater bite around Lake Mendota has been great. Like I mentioned in the intro, as the water temps get warm, walleye are moving out deeper, becoming more numerous on mid-lake humps. But folks are still finding them on shoreline breaks. But Dunn's Bar, Brearley Bars, all the bars are going to be great spots to find walleyes. And of course, those fish do move shallow at night to feed. Pike are pretty much everywhere around Mendota and are always hungry. I've been hearing about actually some dandy fish coming in lately. The Tenney Park breakwall over here has been producing a nice mixed bag of fish, as has the University shoreline now that I'm down this way. But Tenney Park breakwall, great mixed bag of fish in there. Walleyes at night have been good. Action below the lock and dam has been a little slow, but if you got a young person you want to keep busy, a lot of small bluegills in the Tenney Park Lagoon, a decent amount of good largemouth bass in there, and some carp if that's your thing. But down the river, you get down into Lake Monona. Kind of the same deal out there. A lot of bluegills on outside weed edges, but the big news down there has been the bluegill bite, and they are thick in there. You can catch bluegills on weed edges. You can catch them out in the main basin now. And when I talk about that, it's literally just drifting out over any depth of water greater than 20 feet and finding fish 10 to 15 feet down and just hanging a rod over the side of the boat and waiting. So it's a great time of year. It'll remain like that probably till things start to cool down, late September or so. So get out there and enjoy that bite. It's a lot of fun and easy fishing. Otherwise, as far as other fish go, bass up shallow, largemouth action's been good. Some nice fish coming out of here. Haven't heard much in the way of muskies because it's been warm. Not a lot of folks getting out. Otherwise, in other areas of the lake, Brittingham Park area on Monona Bay has been producing some nice gills. A few in the triangles that I've heard about. The Monona Terrace continues to produce a nice bluegill bite during the day, with some crappies showing up in the evening, although that action seems to have slowed a little bit. And I've been hearing about some good walleye action along the John Nolan shore and the Monona Terrace at night. Also weed edges at night. Lake Winger's been Lake Winger. A lot of tiny bluegills in there if you got a young person you want to keep busy. Weeds are getting a little thick, so it's getting a little tough over there. But a good bass population, and of course muskies generally on the smaller side. But again, it's been too warm to fish for those fish. Turville Bay and Weechawak Bay, which does have that slow no wake order on, also great panfish areas over here. As we move down the chain, I've been hearing about a nice mixed bag of fish in the Lottis Park or Lottis Launch area over here, where the current comes under the belt line. Otherwise, Mud Lake Dredge Hole, great for panfish on the weed edges there. Bass out in these shallows surrounding it, shallow flats out there if you can get through the weeds. Wabisa, same deal as Monona. Good action on the weed edges. I don't hear much about the gill suspending out over there, so I just start on a weed edge. If that doesn't work, you can try out over some deeper water. Otherwise, the south end of the lake I've been hearing about some good gill action. The rock humps out here, Hog Island, some good action out there for some walleyes. And of course, along Babcock and Bible Camp is always a pretty safe bet for walleyes. Again, don't hear much about muskie action down there because of the heat. Kegonsa, again, weed edges, is where I'd start. I haven't heard many reports, to be honest, out of Kegonsa. I just don't. I think it's a little too far from the shop to get a ton of reports in. Although the weed edges on the south end of the lake are a pretty safe bet. And of course, there's always a good chance for walleyes along the state park fishing the breaks out there. In other news around Madison, the Rock River's still high. They have a slow no wake order for the river below Lake Koshkonong. No slow no wake on Koshkonong or the river above it. I do hear that they're catching some fish trolling, mostly on the north end of the lake here near Black Hawk Island. The water is high still on the Rock River, but folks are getting some fish at the Jefferson Dam. Sounds like some decent white bass in there and some decent flathead catfish. Other places, Beaver Dam, still got that great eater catfish bite going on. That's starting to catch on. It sounds like more and more people coming through the shop here anyway have been saying they're heading over there to try to get a stock up on some catfish. Good eater size over there. Devil's Lake, the trout are suspended now out over the deep water. You find those fish 15, 20 feet down out over deep water. The river's back down to fishable levels, and all your fish are going to be holding in their traditional areas, deeper corners, where the river swings in, backsides of sandbars. If you got some structure, maybe some trees down in the water, fish those. Great smallmouth bass action and some walleyes out there too. Otherwise, up at the dams, basically this remains for all the flowages, good mixed bag of fish. So You got the Prairie du Sac Dam, Petenwell Dam, Castle Rock Dam, Dells Dam. All of them are going to be holding a nice mixed bag of fish this time of year. And kind of the same deal on the flowages too. Just sort of a general blanket report about those. Trolling for walleyes, 5 to 20 feet of water anywhere. If you've got weed lines you can troll or breaks. Good panfish in the shallow bays and stuff like that. But it's all pretty much the same this time of year. Same thing on Castle Rock, Petenwell, walleyes and panfish. Basically what's going on out there. The Mississippi River is back down and fishable. I've been hearing about some good action at wing dams and along rocky shorelines, some panfish stacked up there. So that's good to hear. Over to Milwaukee. The Milwaukee River, I was actually fishing it this last weekend. Got some smallmouth. I was visiting family over there and took a break and caught a few smallmouth out there. Nothing to write home about, but still a good time. Good to get out. Otherwise, out on the big lake, the king salmon and that haven't moved in shallow. They're still out deep. Charters are getting them out over deep water. Nice mixed bag of kings and cohos and steelhead that they're getting out there. But it won't be long. Once that water starts to cool down and the days get shorter, those fish are going to start moving in there. I heard they're starting to get stacked up a little bit just outside the breaks here on some of the harbors. So, go check that out. If you got a boat that can handle those kind of conditions. Otherwise, yeah, they'll be moving into the harbors here in August and September. They'll start stacking up near the mouths of the river, and then it'll be game on for the migration up the rivers there to spawn. Otherwise, as far as trout fishing goes, this heat makes it tough. So not a lot of folks have been out in the heat. You really shouldn't be out fishing. Take a thermometer with you to test water temps. Shouldn't be out fishing if you're in water that's warmer than 67 degrees or at 67 degrees. Got to give those fish a break because they can get too stressed and actually die from being caught. But this next week the temps look great, mid 70s. So if you're going to get out, area creeks are back down to normal levels and fishing pretty well. They look cold. I drove out smallmouth fishing and checked out a couple. They were looking good. On the spinning gear side of things, a Rapala countdown or a crappie size tube jig, a small spinner or spoon are all you really need for those fish this time of year. If you want to toss meat, it's hard to beat a redworm under a bobber, run through tailouts. Otherwise, on the fly side of things, mayfly hatches are becoming less frequent and limited to mostly early mornings and evenings this time of year. Of course, mayfly nymphs, woolly buggers, and other streamers will still work most times of the day, running those through deeper pools where the trout are, kind of hiding from the sun and stuff like that. So make sure you have those in your box, but have some dries in case you come across a random hatch. But if the fish aren't looking up for those, they're likely looking up for terrestrials, and it's full-on terrestrial season now that we're into August. Love this time of year. It's a great time tossing a foam ant, beetle, or cricket, or a small grasshopper. If you're going to do a grasshopper, I'd go with a small green one this time of year. But yeah, it's just a great time. Otherwise, for our Happy Fly Day feature, with this heat this weekend, I'm going to ask folks to, focus on other species. And we've been going over warm water species the last couple of weeks here, smallmouth stuff. And this week I'm just going to cover some minnows here. So these are a variety of flies. We carry many more than this here at the shop, but these are some of my favorites. Hard to beat a Clouser minnow. Any color works as long as it's chartreuse and white. Of course, that's just a joke, but I love chartreuse and white, especially on the Wisconsin River. You got other minnow imitations here. This is an unholy diver tied by our friends at Aztec Fly Fishing, local tying Enrique. Ties some great flies, sell those here at the shop. Ben Lubchansky ties great flies, Wisconsin River flies. This is a Murdich minnow that he ties, super effective on the Wisconsin River, as are these crease flies, great options. And I can't remember what the name of this one is, but it's super cool looking in the water. That's all I know. So anyway, minnow imitations for bass, especially on the Wisconsin River. You walk around, you can wade in this heat. It's very comfortable. You find smallmouth busting minnows on the surface anywhere. You toss any one of these into that fray, and you're going to get hit. So it's a great time. Stop in, get some flies for the river. Yeah, this one's running long. Thanks for hanging in there. Do post your comments and catches below. Appreciate you all tuning in. We love to see what people are getting out there. And yeah, feel free to call the shop, 241-4225, if you want us to expand on anything. And otherwise, good luck, stay cool, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much.